Hey folks, it's 11 o'clock. I'm doing the live stream, but I'm doing the phone in its proper way because I know when I reverse it, so I can see all your comments, everything's backwards. So I'm not going to be able to see any comments or find out if anybody's on live today. So if I'm not responding, that's the reason why. But I'm excited to be here. Oh, I just want to see. I have my iPad here as I want to see if I can actually see what's going on live. Let me see, and that way I can. And this is terrible. So if any of you do live streaming or live whatever, live on Facebook, tell me how you use two things at once, because I have no idea, and I have no idea how to do both, so I can see. But I'm going to get started anyway. Maybe Sandy's there, because Sandy said she was going to come on. So if you're there, hi. Sadly, I can't even ask any questions, I can't see your questions. Let me see if I can go onto my pages and see, like, nothing. I have nothing here, which is so sad. That's okay. We're just going to get started. The topic today is, are you leaving money on the table because you are not communicating in the best possible way with your client? So I'm going to show you a few basic things on the DISC personality profiles from Insight Personalities, which have made a major change in the way I do business and in the relationships I have, mostly with my spouse and my kids and other people that I'm in relationships with. So I'm going to give you like a quick breakdown. And I want you to find first yourself so that you can understand yourself. And then once you understand yourself, you're going to be able to figure out what your clients are relatively quickly. And then your job is to communicate with them. As Stephen Covey would say, first seek to understand, then to be understood. So if you are not understanding your clients' needs and goals and wishes and wants and dreams and all the things that they're coming to you for, you, first of all, may not be serving them fully. And second of all, you may be just not even getting them at all. And so you're leaving money on the table big time. So my goal today is to try to encourage you to get a little bit more information so you can best serve your client and so you can secure as many deals and clients as you can. So first thing I'm going to ask you to think about for yourself is, would you consider yourself more outgoing or more reserved? So find yourself in one of those two spots and kind of pick that. The next question I have for you then is going to be, would you say that you are more task-oriented or people-oriented? So find yourself in that quadrant. And here's the kicker. You may not know. For me, some people are like, yeah, definitely I am like outgoing and I'm people. So I'm going to go in here. Or I'm outgoing and I'm task-oriented. Or I'm, you know what, I'm a little more reserved and I'm all about the tasks. Or I'm a little more reserved, but I love to serve people. So you're going to find yourself in one of those quadrants. If you're like me, and I actually did this test, gosh, at least 8 or 9 years ago, and I did it with Dr. Robert Rome, and it was a live event, and it was amazing. And he did the very same thing, and he had us split into quadrants, like 1,000 people. It was a riot. But I was waffling between being outgoing and reserved. I know I was definitely on the people side, which is funny, I know, because you think I'm outgoing, because that's one of the states one of the quadrants that I enter into a lot. But surprisingly, which you may not know, is this quadrant down here is more my natural state, is more reserved, and it's more like things like do not embarrass me, and in front of people. Like if it's like a surprise party, that's awesome. But things that could embarrass me, like don't ask me to march my way into a meeting late and the only seat is in the front row and I gotta climb across a bunch of people that were there on time. Like that is embarrassing. Never would I do that. It's my fault. If I'm late, I'm not going to interrupt 15 people to climb across them to get into a seat. But what's funny is that, first I'll write these quadrants in for you. For me, I waffle between these two because these are actually my highest quadrant with this quadrant down here. So depending on the situation is where I'm going to waffle. And I literally walked back and forth between, like for 10 minutes. Every time he said something, I go, no, that's me. No, that's me. And it was quite comical. So anyway, that's a long explanation to say you may not know where you fall, but you might very quickly. So that's what I'm asking you to look at. So if you are outgoing and task-oriented, you are likely a high D, or you have those high D traits. If you're outgoing and people-oriented, you're going to be in the I quadrant. That would be your highest trait. If you are a little more reserved but still people-oriented, that is the S quadrant. And if you are a little more reserved and definitely more on the task, that is the C quadrant. And that makes up DISC, D-I-S-C. So again, for me, I'm actually high S, a very, very close I, and a very close C. Usually people have a 2 blend, like they're an SI blend, or a DI blend, or a CS, or whatever, CD. So depending on what you are, you may have 3 very high quadrants going. I have like very little D. But the funny thing is my husband is a D. And so because S is my highest trait, you may find that the people that you're married to or that you have the closest relationships to are opposite to you. There's like, and they love being with their opposite quadrants too, because there's like a balance. Like, you complete me. Kind of. I hate to say that because I don't really think anybody completes anybody else, quite personally. But in terms of balance of personalities, it's really true. Opposites attract. There's a reason why that holds true, because we really, really do. So these are the things that I want you to think about. So find your main quadrant. You probably have a secondary quadrant as well. And here's the funny thing. You may even be opposite quadrants, which is very rare. Let's just talk about that. The Ds are about 10% of the population. I personalities are 25 to 30% of the population. S's are 30 to 35% of the population. And C's are 20 to 25. So if you're a D, you may be offending the major rest of the population. So this is why I need you to know what it is that you are. Because here's the thing. Ds, I'll give you, there are many personality tests and things out there. But this is the first one that you're going to remember. And the last one you're going to need. The other ones are amazing and very intuitive, and they have, I wouldn't say intuitive actually, they're very insightful, and they have all the information that you need, and they're equally as amazing. However, this is, the first time I heard this, I remembered it, and it's been useful ever since. And this is why I love this model. Because all of the words will match the letters. There's more to it, and there's many more words that don't match the letters that fall into the categories. But this is going to give you some really good key memory hits. So if you are in the D quadrant, D stands for dominant, direct, a little demanding, they can come across, decisive, determined, driver. If that is you, you're like the people that plow ahead. I have my kid's kindergarten teacher. She's a DI, I'm sure. She hasn't done the test for sure, but just basically from what I can recognize, that's her personality. She's getting stuff done. She's doing all the stuff, and she's awesome at it. And she wears this. We're on a dragon boat team together, and she wears this baseball cap that I love. And on the back it says, "Don't be last." And that sort of is like D to the max. So Ds kind of plow through life, and they sometimes forget to look behind them. So if you're in this quadrant, there are some blind spots you may have. You may be really ticking off 30 to 35% of your population or your client, and they're coming to you. But you can be scary. It's true. Living with the D, it's not scary, but I mean, he moves fast, he walks quickly, he just wants things done. And so those are important traits to note if that's you. However, there's something about the outgoing personality traits here. The pace is very fast-paced. C's and S's on the reserve side, slower paced. So decisions are made either fast-paced or a little bit slower. So you need to be thinking about that when you're working with your clients. And just because they're not making a decision quickly doesn't mean they're not making a decision. They're making it based on other things like emotion or details, and are the facts correct? So we'll get into that a little bit in a minute. So eyes are another great words to remember. Are I words. So they're inspiring, they're influencing. I'm looking at my notes so I don't forget. Impressionable. So they like to kind of go with the people around them. Yeah, you think that's great. Okay, this is so great. Yeah, we'll do that. Sure, whatever. They're interactive. So right now I'm probably in my high I because this is where I relate to people on that level. So this is some of the things that and they're impressive and they're interested in people. So if you're in real estate, for example, if you're dealing with a high I client, you're going to want to use words that are impressive to them. This is this home is show ready. Your friends are going to love coming here and having a great party with you. They're interested in people. They're interested in sort of high flashy things. So when you're selling to them and showing real estate, these are the things that you want to consider. So you have to think about the words that you're choosing when you're working with the people, when you can identify them. So down to the S quadrant here. This is more S words that will help you remember. So they are supportive, stable, steady, sweet. I hate to use the word sweet because some people find there's like a negative connotation. Oh, so sweet. But really, really nice. Like if you would say, oh my gosh, that person's like the nicest person ever, they're probably an S. They like the status quo. They don't like to rock the boat. They don't want to make trouble. They don't like conflict. And they like things to be steady. And they can be a little shy. Like if you say, come on up here for an award, and they're like, oh my God, we need a volunteer. Not them. Do not pick an S because they will crawl under the table and run away. So what I'm saying is here again, if you are a D and you're in sales and you're selling homes or showing homes or doing whatever, you can quickly bowl over an S without realizing it because you're like, come on, let's make a decision. That's great. This is going to be perfect for you because D's are quick thinkers and I's are quick thinkers, and you may know that the decision that you're suggesting is probably best for them. But down in this quadrant, they are slower paced thinkers. And not because they're slow, like don't misunderstand. It's because they're taking more information in to make a decision that makes the most sense for them. And it's about security and safety and facts. So as we move into the facts section, this is the C. C quadrants are very cautious. If you're in a relationship with somebody and they won't commit, they're probably a high C. So they may need more facts about this. This is going to be a legitimate relationship. I don't know. So that's something you may want to consider as well. They are calculating. They are competent, conscientious, contemplative, and careful. These are all C words. So they're going to check their facts and double check their facts before they purchase a home or before they sign your contract or whatever it is they're going to do. Because they're looking for the facts. They want to know that everything lines up on paper and that, yes, in fact, this was the best decision they could have made. So again, it's not when they're thinking or they're listening to you or they're asking questions. When C's are asking questions, they're not doubting you. They're trying to gather facts and they're trying to make an informed decision. So that's really important. When S's are asking questions or they're quiet and they're listening, they're looking to be reassured. But however, up in this quadrant, D's are fast thinkers and they want to know bottom line. They don't want your details. If you're a C and you're trying to sell to a D, you are going to lose them in the pages upon pages upon pages of facts and details that you have curated for them. They're not interested. They want to know bottom line. Think Kevin O'Leary. That's a D for you right there. Don't give me all this, mammy schmammy. Don't give me the emotion. Is it going to make me money? You've seen it a million times if you ever watch Dragon's Den. So that's the kind of person you're dealing with. And D's like a challenge. If you're an S and you have to deal with a D, okay, we are back. Part 2. Apparently this thing shut off. So sorry about that if you're watching. Thanks for sticking with me. If you did get cut off, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I was talking about Kevin O'Leary as a D. I's would probably be... who are we talking about? Mike Myers or Jim Carrey or Robin Williams is your typical I, very entertaining, all that kind of stuff. S's, we didn't get a chance to talk about who an S might be. I would say Justin Trudeau. He's probably an SI, and I is probably part of what he has to step into in terms of his like professional life and his professional role as a spokesperson for our country. But, he's all like, you see the pictures of him with the heart. He's all about, bring the refugees. We are all one. We are, that's a definite S trait for sure. C's, I would say Hillary Clinton would be a great example of a C. she's a lawyer, for one. I mean, originally in her previous life, that's what she did. So she collected facts and figures and was about proving the truth. So those are the kinds of things I want you to think about. These are kind of exaggerated, but they're great examples for you to think about when you meet people. So nobody is ever one quadrant. We are all a blend of all of these things. So we just need to learn what our major quadrant is that we land in. And then we usually, it's very rare, again, 2 to 3% are opposite quadrants. It's very rare. So typically, you are going to be a blend, say you're an S, you're usually a blend of an SI or an SC. It's usually a quadrant that's kind of beside you, a CD or a CS. So, and then often there's a third quadrant that we can reach into. So what's interesting, what I learned in my training was there is a third quadrant that we can tap into when we need to environmentally. There's two things. There's environmentally, things that you just do because of the situation and the circumstance you're in. And then there's our natural way of being. Like if there was no stress, we would just be a certain way. And for me, that's why it's an S. I would be calm and quiet and I'm family oriented and I do all those things. Environmentally, I step into my I more frequently than if there was less stress. But because I'm trying to run a business and doing all those things, I tap into that. I also tap into my C. But my most success is going to be attainable and accessible if I can access the D quadrant, because this is where I'm weakest in terms of all of my quadrants. So by going here, I'm going to, because S's have a hard time saying no, for example. D's, no. They hang up the phone, no problem. So if you have a hard time saying no, sure, I'll do that thing because I have everything else I have to do anyway, sure, no problem. We hate to disappoint people and make people feel bad, and we don't want to feel bad, so we take more on. We can't say no. So as an S, for example, that's a way I can learn to be more direct with people and say, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't work with what I'm doing, or that doesn't fit my schedule, I'm sorry, I can't. And then I actually start living the life that I need and that I want. And so, like anything, we have a part of our personality that is amazing and beautiful, and then taken too far, or like on a bad day. So, us on a good day, and then on a bad day. So D's, for example, D's are direct, they're decisive, they're getting stuff done, and they're like, yeah, don't be last, right? You're just getting stuff done. However, on the flip side, on a bad day, what ends up happening, because D's are so direct, they can appear really offensive. Like, they say things so directly, there's like zero filter. And that can get people into a lot of trouble, especially if you're selling. So I want you to be considering the things that you're saying when you're trying to sell to people. So, and the same with I's. It's like, anyway, there's no filter. My point was going back to the quadrants that you fit into. So if I want to connect with a D, and I have a really hard time because I'm in the S quadrant, I have to find a way to like stretch and reach into that quadrant when it's really not my natural place to be. So out of my two personalities that I tend to go into, which one do I find it easier to access the quadrant that I'm least comfortable in? For me, because I'm an SIC, my C is very detail-oriented. If you have any of my wedding planning templates or whatever, that's all details, checklists, timelines. I love that kind of, like logistics. I love it. So for me, that, while it's a lot of detail, it's getting stuff done, doing stuff. And so for me, my access to the D quadrant, when I have to squeak into it every now and then, is through my C. And so I need to be conscious of how to access my most difficult quadrant. So I want to leave that with you today as well. When you're trying to figure out your clients and who they are, you need to figure out who you are first, where you land in the quadrant section, and and here's the thing, the people that you're attracted to most that are like, if you're a C, it's like you need people, you need comic relief in your life, you need the I's, because the I's bring so much fun. They're like, oh my God, let's do that. You want to go bungee jumping? Yeah, I'm in. So you have to find, you typically find people like that because they bring comic relief to your life. And so you need to be able to access that quadrant if you are going to sell to those people and that personality. So I just want to leave that with you today. I'd love it if you have any questions. I'd leave some comments below. Check out my website, theweddingcoach.ca, And let's talk more about it. It's one of my favorite topics, of course. I've been living this for about 10 years. My husband introduced it to me when we first got together, actually. We were dating, and like you have your first fight, like the first 3 months, and you're like, I do not need this. I'm like, because I'm an S and he's a D. And he's like, babe, he calls me up. He's like, I'm not a jerk. I'm just a D. That doesn't mean anything to me. So he introduced his work to me about 12 years ago, and we've been living this in our relationship and in our life. And I use it in my business. And because I understand how to connect with all of the different quadrants, and I'm able to see the fine gestures that are in the body language and the way they dress, I can pinpoint pretty quickly. And the questions they ask. D's ask what? What is the bottom line? What do you want? What do you need? What is it? I's are like, who's going to be there? Yeah, I want the best band. Yeah, I want the most beautiful house. S's are like, how? How do we all get along? How's this going to happen? How's it going to work? C's are why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way? Why? So you can notice these questions when you're dealing with your potential clients to answer their questions, and that will give you clues to give them the most reliable answers that they're looking for to satisfy their needs from their main personality quadrants. So I'm going to leave that with you today. Check in, weddingcoach.ca. Leave your comments below. Subscribe on YouTube. I got the whole shebang going, and I would love to connect and answer your questions and talk more about it. It's one of my favorite topics. In the meantime, go have lunch, and we'll chat soon. Take care for now.